Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for another Watercolour Wednesday. I've got some paints to swatch. I got these way too long ago and they haven't yet been out for a swatching. These are Daniel Smith watercolour paints in their tubes. I need to put them into pans as well. If that's something you'd like to see happen, let me know, because I've also got some colours I need to top up. But for now, I'm going to put them onto this melamine tray and that'll be fine. I'll put some paint here, it can dry there and I can reuse it. You'll have seen my other melamine tray in action with lots of blues and browns. These are, actually they should be the other way up, shouldn't they? That's the way the words go. Potter's Pink, which I've been coveting for a long time. Quinacridone Coral, so all the quinacridone colours are really bright and vibrant. So the very, very soft Potter's Pink, very, very vibrant quinacridone Coral. Perylene Violet, which has been on my list for a long time. Again, the Perylene colours are beautiful. And this is one of a new set of greys that Daniel Smith brought out a few years back. And I've been eyeing the greys because, as you know, I'm a bit of a fan of a grey. So this is Alvaro's Caliente grey, which I think was one of the warm greys. So there's some Potter's Pink going down. I don't want to put too much on here. I'll make some proper pans later. Sorry, it's grey as grey outside today. So I'm working with the artificial light. So I'm just trying to place that so that you're not getting lots of shadow on it. So there's Potter's Pink. Here is Quin Coral. Oof, it's already vibrant right there. Here is the Perylene Violet. I'm not spreading these out completely because I have a sort of a plan in my head going forwards into probably into the next episode of some other colours I want to add to this as a limited palette to play with. But for now, I want to swatch out these colours for the first time, have a look at them. And I've created myself a little grid in this book, so you can see there are pages where I've done swatching in one way, pages where I create a little mix and then do a little doodle. So it's all strips. I'm quite fancying some strips because I think these are going to mix up really beautifully. But I'll start with my little grid, 4x4, for once I have done some measuring because I want to fit all 4 paints on. And yeah, I'm just going to go with all 4 in that direction and all 4 in that direction. Swatching for the first time is always joyous. Working with wet paint straight out of the tube as opposed to set pans. So after you put them in the pans, obviously they dry there. And then you have to reconstitute with water each time and they'll work again, even all these little dry bits on the pan. But when you're working straight from fresh, it's a whole different kettle of fish. I've just realised I haven't got my water jars filled, so I'm going to go and do that and I'll be right back. There we are, that's better. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to work with those all the way up there. That's a bit weird. We'll see how we go. So, a little bit of water. Don't need much on the brush because, as I say, the paint is already wet, but it's really easy to just mix up a very juicy bit of paint here. So as always, I've got 2 water jars, one that I will aim to use to add clean water to mix up my paint, one that I will aim to use as my wash off the brush jar. So this is Potter's Pink going down in position 1. See, the shadows are not great, are they? Apologies. So I'm just going to dry that off because at this point I want a nice clear sense of what's going where. Might do a slightly more watery wash going down this side so I get a look at strong colour in one position and a softer version coming down the side. I'm just going to knock that back a little bit because I know that Potter's Pink will go very, very pale if you want it to. So where these two meet, I'm going to get an extra intense version because I can do layers and layers of Potter's Pink here to just build up that colour and see what's possible in terms of a stronger Potter's Pink. And what I might also do, we'll see, I might add an extra layer while it's still wet, but then I can also glaze once that's dry, and I'm gonna go for something quite intense in one corner and let it spread out. So adding moist pigment, as you can see, is a different kind of game. Juicy, slightly sticky, which I like, but not as sticky as honey-based watercolours. Daniel Smith don't use honey, Sennelier use honey, and that's a different kind of feeling. Okay, wash off the brush. Going to go in with the third colour first of all, so that I leave time for that to dry in between. And this is going on again, quite sticky, quite dry. I haven't added a lot of water to that. Oh, look at that colour. This is why I've been coveting Perylene Violet. I hope that the colours are reasonably true to life, despite the artificial light that's going on. Just going to knock that back a little bit there, because I don't want that going on. And then let's get a slightly more watery version. So I'm going to let these paints spread out upwards up here, so I can find my watery versions a little further away. Oh, look at that in the soft version as well. So that's a watery mix going down the side there, so that I get a look at it in a different form. That's beautiful. And then I'm going to go to the square where they mix. So this is Perylene Violet plus Perylene Violet going in this third square, where that column and that row meet. That's double Perylene Violet, so I know I can go straight in with that. And again, because it's Perylene plus Perylene, I'm going to make it quite a strong version of the colour with an extra layer. So taking a paint out for the run for the first time is such an exciting process. I think that's had long enough to dry there. So let's have a look at this Quin Coral. This is going to be vivid. It really is vivid. Wow. So this is a colour I'll probably almost never use as itself, as it were. It's a mixing colour for me. The Quins as mixing colours are incredible because they will add that vivid tone to anything you mix them with. So let's add a little bit of water to this and get ourselves the delicate version of Quin Coral coming down the side here. And that too is, I mean, it's very vivid, but in a watery way. I'm just going to take away some of that additional water. Don't really want that in a flat wash. If you've got water running around, it's going to cause things to move and shift and change. And that's going to be fine when I come to messing around with these paints. But for now, I want a little bit more of a controlled version. So we're now onto our Caliente grey. I'm going to go for quite a strong one to start with. Oh, that's a beautiful dark grey. And I would say, I don't know, it's between warm and cold. That's a really good neutral grey. Very excited about using that as a mixing colour as well. Very excited about having that in the palette. A little bit more water. I'm just going to take some of that paint off there. Let that spread out up here to give myself a nice watery mix of Caliente grey. Oh look, I haven't done my Quin Coral bit yet. Okay, it's going to be Caliente grey first then. So where Caliente grey meets Caliente grey, let's pop that in there. I'm going for quite a strong one straight away because I know that I can go intense with that. It's a really good dark charcoal. This is another really great way to practice the shifts and changes with your watercolours. So I'm mostly going here in the grid for flat washes, and in a minute I'm going to do the thing where we look at gradients. But you can see you can do your flat wash as a as a dark or as a pale version, a waterier version. Rinse off, dry off, because I want to come in, I want to make sure that's clean, not mixing yet. Coming back in for my vivid Quin Coral, where Quin Coral meets Quin Coral. Sorry, yeah, I don't tend to say Quinacridone every single time. What are you going to do, eh? It's a big long word. I like it. Quinacridone. I first met it as an acrylic paint, actually, media fluid acrylics, Quin Gold, Quinacridone Gold, which is an extraordinary colour for creating rustiness and autumn vividness. That is quite the pink. Grand. So now we get to a little bit of mixing. What I try to aim to do when I'm mixing in a grid like this is I'll try to be not a 50-50. In these side, I'm going to try and go more heavy on the colour at the top, and at this side I'm going to try to go more heavy of the colour that's here. So when I mix this Potter's Pink and Quin Coral, I'm going to try to have a bit more Quin Coral in the mix. When I go down here, I'm going to try to have a bit more Potter's Pink in the mix. So you can see you get Quin and Pink and Quin and Pink in two places. So you might as well make the most of creating a difference there. So here's some Quin Coral mixing up with some Potter's Pink. So I'm just going to lift that out of there, pop that in there. Just a little bit of Potter's Pink to just shift the colour of that. Ooh, and that's getting us a real dusky rose, I would call that. Somewhere in between those two. So that one's going in there. That's Quin Coral and the Potter's Pink. Oh, it picked up a bit of wet Quin Coral just then. Not to worry. I don't mind if I get a little bit of travelling. Then for down this side, I want to add a bit more of the Potter's Pink to this mix. Is that, it's not on camera, is it? A little bit more Potter's Pink going into that mix there, so that I've now got a more pottery pink version of whatever this colour is. And that really is quite close to the Potter's Pink, but with a little extra hint of warmth from the Quin Coral. I'm not doing this as a scientific process at the moment. If I wanted to really make sure I was getting precise amounts of paint, I would spend a lot longer focusing on it. But I'm just taking these out for a first spin to have a look at them. So something approximate is fine by me. Again, in the artificial light, that might not be showing too much about what's different there, but it really is. Right, so let's have Potter's Pink and some Perylene Violet. So I'm going to pop the Perylene Violet up here. There it goes. Clean off. A little bit of Potter's Pink into the mix. The Perylene Violet is a really strong colour. Potter's Pink is a much softer, less full-on colour. So my guess is that's going to be mostly Perylene Violet. But it's another really beautiful aged rose. Just that point when rose petals are going over. I could create a stronger mix, so let's get some more Perylene Violet. Let's get some more Potter's Pink. And just go for a slightly stronger one of these. It's a really pretty colour. I'm getting sort of aged tea roses, Victorian vintage, very much so. So now to this mix, I'm going to add a bit more of the Potter's Pink to come down this side. Let's pick that up, mix it in. So it's going to be similar to this shade, but its own kind of thing down here. Really interesting how these Potter's Pink is proving to be more dominant than I thought it was going to be. I thought Potter's Pink was going to be a colour that sort of resisted, got overwhelmed, other way around. I thought Potter's Pink was going to be a colour that got overwhelmed by the other colours you add. So I'm actually going to go in with another wash of Perylene Violet, just to get a shift of that. So this is putting colour over a more dried version. And in a minute, I might go back and add another layer of Quin Coral to that one. just so that I can see some differences. Could I do it now? No, let's let it dry. Where have we got to? Okay, Potter's Pink and Caliente Grey. This I'm looking forward to. I do love a grey and a pink. So let's pop the Caliente Grey up there and grab some Potter's Pink. In it goes. Ooh. Now that's quite strongly Potter's Pink, so I'm just going to put in some more Caliente Grey first, because this is supposed to be the more grey mix up here, following what's above. That's beautiful. So just adding that hint of pink to the grey, that's giving me a really gorgeous shift of tone. Enjoying that. Let's grab some more Potter's Pink to add to that mix. And that's going to come down here and be a sort of beautiful stony pink. Subtle gradations of colour. Just what you can achieve mixing up different levels of balance. That's nice. So although this column looks all very similar, they do in fact shift rather beautifully in colour. The softer purple tone of that one, the greyish tone of that one, that vivid pink, onwards. So mixing Quinacridone. I'm gonna need more spaces on here, so what I might do is just knock out these three mixes. There's almost no pigment there. You could keep those, let those dry, but just for the purposes of a mixing video, let's keep things clean, as it were, or clear, so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go with some Quinacridone up here, and to that, so this is Quinacridone plus Perylene Violet, and I'm going to go with a good helping of Perylene Violet into this mix. And that's coming in here. And again, in terms of developing your eye for colour, just letting yourself experience what mood or what thoughts a colour triggers in you. So that's a bit of a time travel colour for me. It's taking me back to particular moments, particular garments, particular objects that I can remember. Here's Quinacridone and Perylene Violet. Just a little bit more violet into there. Just so again we get that shift of colour. That's a beauty. If anybody's looking at this page and thinking roses, I think you're right. So Quinacridone with Caliente Grey is my next go. So let's get some Caliente Grey up here to mix. Quite a lot of the grey there, and some coral to pick up and mix with it. Ooh. trying to balance shadows versus visibility on camera. There we go. That's almost becoming a sort of maroony brown colour, as I had hoped that it might. That's a great autumnal browny purple. Meadows, seed heads, just things going over, as it were. Things at the end of their season of growing. Right, so what are we doing? Quinacridone plus Caliente Grey, but with a bit more of the coral in this time. Let's grab it and mix it in. Wow, berries. So again, this time of year, this is berrylicious, really, what's going on here. Roses in the summer, berries as we head to late summer. There are plums on the page here, figs, some hawthorn berries, maybe. You could, yeah, you could definitely get hawthorn out of this. Maybe the next thing we'll have to do is paint my hawthorn berries, that stamp. That might be the next episode. But it will also do blackberries, red currants, all kinds of things. So you can now see we're almost there. We're looking at Caliente grey with the Perylene violet. So I'm going to grab some Perylene violet to start with and pop that up there because we're coming with the grey. Quite a lot of Perylene violet I've got there, so we might do this box first with the heavier version of Perylene violet. Let's mix that in there. Again, coming down on camera. So you can see the melamine tray is great, particularly if you can find a white melamine tray, because you can see your colour mix quite clearly already. That's got a beautiful depth to it. Just those hints of purple. Again, when you see these in close up, it'll make it, oh hello, you're going on a big journey into the Quin Coral. So I'm just going to put a stop to that with some paper towel. As I said last time, pigment will travel into places that are wet. So if you see something traveling where you don't want it, dry that bit of paper. I'm going to have to come back in with a bit of coral and Caliente grey. So that's that. Just to fill in that flat wash. I will get some texture in there because I've applied slightly wet over slightly dry. And then in here, let's add a bit more of the Caliente grey back in. And get that into there. Oh, the colour of that. Gone for quite a watery wash there, just because I was curious. It's beautiful. And again, it's slightly seeping, but I'm going to let that happen. So a really full-on colour grid. Anybody who's watching this and thinking, where's Alison gone? Sometimes it happens. Partly because these are the colours I've waited to buy. I've bought my favourite blues and greens and so on and so forth. So now what I'm going to do is just create a couple of what I think of as colour strips. So I'm starting with some Potter's Pink, letting that be dark and light. Going to feed in some Perylene Violet, letting that be dark and light. Just letting those colours meet and play. I'll feed in a bit of the Quin Coral. Let them mix where they mix and then draw out the colour. Going to come back to some Potter's Pink, I think. So yes, by the time I get to this stage in my watercolour collection, I'm now working with new colours that arrive that are unusual to me, but they are part of this journey that I'm on with colour, with watercolour. So Potter's Pink is definitely a granulating colour. I mentioned that in the last video. You can see there are heavier bits of pigment that when you're working with a textured paper will just kind of rest into that texture in a really beautiful way. That Perylene Violet is extraordinary as a colour. I'm going to do a couple more colour sticks just to have a play. So I'm letting that colour move, and I'm letting it blend sort of automatically with the next colour that arrives, and just allowing what happens to happen. Bit of Potter's Pink into that grey. The grey and Potter's Pink together are doing very beautiful things to my brain. I'm going to come back in with maybe a bit of the coral. Just a little moment of coral. And then back to grey. So you can see this is creating all kinds of interesting gradations of colour. Just letting those mix and blend on the paper. Another way to mix watercolour. So some mixing in advance, some you can glaze over the top. So this one's probably dry now. Let me show you a version of a glaze. I'm going to come in with another glaze of the Quin Coral over that dry area. And you can see that immediately shifts the colour tone of the whole panel in a rather beautiful way. And I might do the same with just a little watery wash of Perylene Violet over this one. just to give me a look at what that is. So even after you've painted, you can come back in, and you can come back in with the same colour. So this is that wash of Caliente Grey plus the Perylene Violet. And if I want to intensify that now, I've still got that mix on the palette, come back in and do that. Grand, maybe one more colour stick up here. Let's go with start with a grey. Oh, look at that moving. Might go quite a long way with that grey. And then I might just allow some gentle Perylene Violet to mix with it, as opposed to a really full-on colourful version, which I've got there. Let's let that move across. Let's blend into Vintage Potter's Pink. That's lovely. And then maybe a slightly stronger version of the Perylene Violet to finish off. So we've got two of those happening there. And I want a version of each of these, I think probably here, where I'm going to start with a lot of colour. Maybe not there, maybe here. Although I sort of want to play there. Let's go Potter's Pink in quite a thick, colourful version. Yeah, I'm going to regret not doing this here because I can see it's going to spread for miles. So if I just allow that colour to move down, adding a bit of water, letting it soften, clean the brush again, more water, just inviting that pigment down to the bottom of the page. Oh, that's good. Right, Quin Coral, let's do the same thing. So a nice strong starting point, just here at the top, really concentrated pigment. Let that move a little bit, and as I press down with the brush, I'm releasing a bit more water. Clean off. I'm now not being diligent with the water and what's going in clean and dirty, but I need to keep that water just a little bit clear so that I can let that drift. And again, just inviting that pigment to travel. Perylene Violet, let's do the same. So as opposed to a flat wash, this is a graduating wash. So I'm starting from really intense colour pigment, and then I'm just allowing water and pigment to play. That's a lot of pigment there. That Perylene Violet is so strong. So I've cleaned off the brush quite well to just invite some of that pigment down towards the foot of the page. And again, I'm pushing backwards. That's probably going to create a bloom, but I sort of don't mind because I'm interested in the colours I get and the textures I get. I'm inviting a bit more colour down to the bottom because as it's spreading out, it's really making me quite happy. Good. And Caliente Grey. Finally over here, let's put a nice concentrated bit of pigment at the top there. Just invite it down a little way. Clean off, mostly clean brush. Very clean brush, just some water now. Again, inviting that pigment to travel. And you can see where the page is dry, it won't cross that bridge. But where I've got water on the page, that pigment will travel into those areas and come out to party. It's really pretty. I'm tempted to do one more colour stick up here so that I've got half the page. The Quin Coral is an astonishing colour. I'm really looking forward to mixing that with some sort of unexpected colours, maybe some greens. Can't wait to see what that does if you mix the Quin Coral with greens, but particularly for sort of autumn leaves, I think it's going to be amazing with some of the burnt sienna colours. Oh, let's not do Potter's Pink next. Let's do a Perylene Violet next, because otherwise we're going to end up with Perylene Violet at the end again. I don't want Perylene Violet at the end again. So I'm varying the amounts of pigment, I'm varying the amounts of water, and I'm allowing these colours to just encounter one another. and seeing how that happens. If I add in some water, that's going to create texture. If I add in some water, that's going to create texture, because those paints were partly dry. Where the paint is really dry, you'll have a different effect. You can sort of blend and move things, and you can lift. So if I go in with water, I can lift colour away. If I go in with a clean brush, so where this Perylene Violet is really strong, if I want to lift it away and create highlights, also there where it's light. Strongly pigmented paints will usually leave something on the page. A softer pigment, you might be able to lift all the way back to the white page underneath. So my feeling with what I want to just have a go with a little doodle is sort of sunset misty skies, I think. I'm going to go with maybe a wash of the Potter's Pink, really quite soft. I'm now working with quite dirty water. Maybe a touch of Perylene Violet as I come down the page. So I'm now working with a really soft wash, very watery washes. I've dropped some Perylene Violet into that grey, but I'm going to live with it. Come back in with a bit more grey at the bottom here, so that I'm creating a sort of a landscape. I'm going to leave little dry patches so that you can get a look at paper underneath. Let's zoom in so you can see what's happening there. So there we are. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. When you're playing with watercolour, if I go wet into wet, it's going to spread out a lot. If I let it dry a little bit, I can still see a sheen on there, so I can see it's still got water on the page, and that's going to have one kind of effect. If I let it dry fully, I can go in with detail. But what I want to do for now is maybe add a little bit of soft landscaping that's going to spread out into that texture. This is just doodling. This is not full-on painting. This is a bit of a doodle. I might add some sort of soft tree shapes, maybe just a thought of a tree, because as I say, it is going to, or bushes, maybe it's more of a wintry landscape. This, let's let that do some stuff. Let's let just some texture dance onto the page. As you can see, because it's going wet into wet, it's going to continue to move. Where it's drying more, then I'll get a little bit more detail available, and to put some shadowiness down under these trees, just to create a little bit of depth. It's still pretty watery, so I'm still getting that sense of texture, but it's softening as it moves in the water. Going to put some shadowing onto here, and I might now move to a slightly finer brush, because this is my 8 round. Yeah, it's an 8. And although they say with watercolour you should work with the largest possible brush to start with, as you go you want to add a little bit more detail, then you can work with a finer brush. Continuing to let that dry as I go. I'm going to add just a little bit of Quinacridone, just hints of it, to dance in to maybe a bit of a sunrise colour. Letting that just move on the page. Mess with that a bit. Mess with that a bit. I'm just creating a few uprights, so the colours are mixing and blending as I go. A little bit of texture, a little bit of detail. And now I am going to switch to, what have we got? This is the round, I think 2. So this is quite a fine brush. I'm going to just pause a little minute and let that dry. You can see there's less of a sheen, but there is still a sheen. So watching that is one of the things to do when you're playing like this. This will enable me to put in a bit more detail and have it stay detailed, hopefully. depending on how wet I get this. If I work with quite a dry brush, then I've probably got a bit more. No, see, that's still wet over there. I'm going to create just some scribbly texture strokes. Just let that spread out a little bit. Scribbly texture strokes. Going to go in with a bit more detail along this horizon line. Scribble, scribble. Some little bits of detail just heading in down here. So you can see where it's drier. Just make sure I'm on camera again. I always forget when I've zoomed in. So a really brilliant brush for this kind of thing is a rigger, but I'm not sure I've got my rigger down here, so I'm just going to carry on doing it with my little number 2. Let's put a little bit more detail through into here. So now it's going to be just building some lights and darks into this, some contrast, little moments of Queen Coral. Yeah, see, for me as a colour by itself, it's not a thing. But if I come back in with some Perylene Violet, I'm going to be able to start to build more of an autumnal, wintry, sunrise morning. Just those colours in the hedgerows. And obviously this is a limited palette kind of an affair. Part of me is dying to be able to add a bit of brown, so I know that I can, by mixing Caliente grey and the coral, I can create myself something that maybe will satisfy that urge. So just up there on the palette, I'm just going in to get myself a bit more of a browny tone, trying some Perylene Violet in there as well. Let's add some bits of detail here. I sort of feel like there's a village over there in the background, but I don't really want to get too too full on with this. It's a doodle. It's a little experiment just to see what I've got. Little flecks of grasses in the foreground. And let's just let this drift away. That might be enough for just a sort of little starter experiment, just to explore what these colours will get up to. Spread some of that colour out. So as soon as I add water, you can see the pigment goes out to dance. I do sort of see, I don't know if you can see it too, a little church spire. Just might try and catch that with some Caliente grey. I want it quite misty and soft. Don't want too much detail back there. Just an impression of buildings somewhere over the fields. In the distance. Let's create a path to go to them. There's a little gate. There we go. So there you are, a little bit of Watercolour Wednesday playtime with some new colours, just seeing what's what, seeing what I can tease out colour-wise. And I might have to go for just a little bit of Potter's Pink splatter just to create that extra bit of texture. If I put Perylene Violet, that's going to be a lot, but it is quite nice extra texture. Extraordinary colours. But as I was saying at the beginning, I sort of have a plan for adding to this limited palette, which we might explore in another session. Thanks so much for your company today. I hope you've enjoyed that little journey into my watercolour playtime, Watercolour Wednesday, with some brand new, really quite exciting colours. I'll dive in for a close-up. As always, I'll leave lists of what we've used today down below, and do leave any comments or questions or thoughts. I'm almost tempted, really tempted, to get the little spatter brush out and just, yeah, mess up this colour grid a little bit. I'm probably going to write the names on here, but that water, not quite in the same way as a spritz and flick with distress ink, but that will pick up a little bit of colour and just give me some texture, particularly the Potter's Pink. I don't know if you can see that lifted up. There's still quite a lot of water there. I'm going to let it interact a little bit longer and then go in and pick it up. And it's again just giving me those little moments of highlighting so that I get a little look at a different colour, a different version of the colour in that mixed up colour grid. Ooh, look, picking up lots of water. Oh, look at that. See where you get that texture? That's when my brain starts to really cook in terms of what's possible with water and pigment. Thanks so much for your company, and happy crafting all.